Okay, here's some notes and some examples on graphing the ellipse. And the standard form, or sometimes called the graphing, I call that sometimes the graphing friendly form of an ellipse with center at 0, 0. So the standard form is x squared over a squared plus y squared over b squared equals 1. Where plus or minus a, that's the square root of a squared, determines the horizontal axis. And plus or minus b, that's the square root of b squared, determines the vertical axis. And I'll show you how these work when we graph these, and the idea is to graph them. So if we have an example, this is x squared over 16 plus y squared over 25 equals 1. So you can see that a squared is 16, so a equals plus or minus 4. B squared is 25, so b equals plus or minus 5. Well, what does that mean? Well, if we took this equation and we let y equal 0, remember if y equals 0, we look at a graph here. If y is 0, then the values we get would be the x-intercepts. So if we put y equals 0 in here, y squared over 25 is just 0 over 25, which is 0. So we just end up with a simple equation, x squared over 16 equals 1. If we multiply both sides by 16, then take the square root of both sides, x equals plus or minus 4. Those are the x-intercepts. All right? So I could look at, if I want to graph this, I look at my parabola over here, and we already know that the center is at 0, 0. So I could put my center here. And I know the x-intercepts are plus or minus 4. Just found that out. So I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4 in the right direction and 1, 2, 3, 4 in the left direction. So those are my x-intercepts, and those are 2 points on the ellipse. Hope you can see that. And then if x is 0, that's going to give us the y-intercepts. So when x is 0, if I put 0 in here for x, what happens? Well, this term goes out, so I have y squared over 25 equals 1. Let me get this up a little bit higher so you can see that. Excuse me. So again, if x is 0, this goes away. So we've got y squared over 25 equals 1. Multiply both sides by 25, then take the square root. So y equals plus or minus 5. And these are what would be the y-intercepts. Well, this is just for a ellipse that's centered at 0, 0, but my y-intercepts are plus or minus 5. So if I want to graph this, I just put plus or minus 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 1, 2, 3, 4, negative 5. Now those are your 4 what we call intercepts. And then we can just connect these with a smooth curve. These are a little bit harder than the circle. But look something like this. Shaped kind of like, in this case, an egg. And there's your ellipse. So I did it in pencil. So do these in pencil so you can make some erasers and stuff. And maybe it works better if I kind of got to get a little bit more round there, I guess. And up a little bit more here. Something like that. Yeah, I don't have a nice template like I do for the circles, so you gotta have kind of sketch this out. Don't like that either. I feel like Bob Ross here, don't I? Okay, here we go. He's the guy that does all those paintings. Something like that. But Bob Ross could do a lot better job than me, that's for sure. Okay, try this again. Here we go. All right, something like that. So there's kind of my ellipse, okay? So do your best effort to do that. So, and now, since this axis here, the vertical axis is actually 10 units long, and the horizontal is 8 units long. We call this the major axis, and this is the minor axis. And you can always determine that by looking at the equation. Okay? Now, if we have an ellipse centered at, that's not centered at the origin, let's take a look at this here. Then the standard form of the ellipse with center HK is given by x minus h squared over a squared plus y minus k squared over b squared, and that equals 1. And this is kind of like, it looks a lot, if you just look at the top, it looks a lot like the circle. All right? And again, we already know what the a squared and the b squared, or the a and the b, are going to determine the horizontal vertical axis. But this will be, in this case, from the center. So I don't think we have to do all this work we did up here, but you can if you want. But if you take a look at this, and they will actually give you the points, but we can actually do it from the center with kind of a shift. So if we take a look at this, the center of this, if we have an example, x plus 2 squared over 9 plus y minus 3 squared over 4 equals 1. The center is going to be negative 2 and 3. Remember, they're the opposite signs. And the a is going to be plus or minus 3, and the b will be plus or minus 2. So how would we graph such a thing? All right, so this is example. This was example 1. And this is example 2. And again, first of all, we're going to find our center. So our center is going to be at the point negative 2, 3. So my center will be negative 2 and up 3. Negative 2, 3. All right. There's my center. Negative 2, 3. And my a is going to be plus or minus 3. So I'm going to go, and that's under the x. So that's going to give me the x-intercepts. So I'll go plus or minus 3 from this point in the horizontal direction. That's going to determine the horizontal axis. So I'll go plus or minus 3. 1, 2, 3 here. And 3 to the left. 1, 2, 3 there. And then the b is going to determine the y-intercepts, or not the y-intercepts, in this case the vertical axis. So that's going to be plus or minus 2. So I just go plus or minus 2 above and below. And there we go. And those are your 4, sometimes we call these vertices. And we just connect these. This will be it's a little smaller, so it'll be a little bit easier. Just make sure you kind of round it off. Don't go round it off at the points down here. Smaller ones are a little bit easier to draw. And again, you might, once you get your points in, you can put your points in ink, but you might want to draw it in pencil so you can doctor it up a little bit so it looks like a nice egg. And there you go, and there's your ellipse there. Now, you might want to label the center. The center is going to be at negative 2, 3. And then we can also label our vertices. So this is going to be the point 1, and it goes up 3. This is going to be the point negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, negative 5, 3. And over here, this is going to be the point negative 2, 1, 2 up 1, and then negative 2 and up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Negative 2 up 5, so you could label your vertices. All right? So hope that makes sense. And over the first example, I didn't really label my vertices, but this is just going to be 0, 0 for the center. And this is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 0. And negative 4, 0. And this is going to be 0, 5, and x is 0, negative 5. Okay? So that's example 1, and there's example 2.